About 2,600 years ago, something happened that ended up being quite important for us as Trinity Methodist Church. 2,600 years ago, Judah, the old southern kingdom of the people of Israel, was being invaded by the great empire of Babylon. They were besieging Jerusalem. The great prophet Jeremiah was in prison in the palace. He'd been arrested because he had actually prophesied this Babylonian invasion very accurately, and the king, who actually just didn't like the fact that Jeremiah told the truth, used this charge of treachery to put Jeremiah in prison. It was a very hopeless situation. This great empire had invaded, and it was only a matter of time before they would overrun Judah and Jerusalem, and the people of Judah would in fact be taken off into exile. So while Jeremiah is in prison, a messenger arrives, and the messenger says to him that he has got first option to buy a piece of land that is within the family, and because of his position in the family, he's got first option to buy a piece of land in Judah. Now, it obviously doesn't make sense to buy land at a time like that, but God actually reveals to Jeremiah that he should buy this piece of land. God had actually revealed to Jeremiah that this offer was going to be made to him. So Jeremiah realized, yes, I actually do have to buy this piece of land, but why? And God reveals to him that he's got to buy the piece of land because it will stand as a message to the people of Judah that one day they will come back. Jeremiah will never live on the land, but one day the people will come back and they will build houses again and they will farm the land. Now, I said the story actually had significance for us as Trinity Methodist Church. How that is when we were doing our strategic planning in 2015, we were led to this passage. It's Jeremiah 32. And as we as a full leadership spent time reflecting on why we had been led to this passage, we came to understand that God was saying to us, it's hard times in South Africa. There is not a lot of hope around. It's mostly despair. And God was saying to us that we as a church, Trinity Methodist Church, needed to be a beacon of hope in these tough times. We needed to survive these tough times. We needed to help people survive these tough times. We needed to be around after these tough times so that we could be part of the whole project of rebuilding South Africa. And so it was very similar for us as it was for the message that this piece of land would be that Jeremiah had to buy. Hello, my name is John, and this is the second of 3 videos which are asking and answering the question of how can we help each other and in these financially difficult times. In this video particularly, I want to reveal to you how the church spends its money. What is it doing with the money? How is it supporting you and the community? Now, there's something very important to appreciate when one talks about money and the church. And what it is this. God's grace is free. You don't need money for grace. It is a free gift. It did cost. The cost was something Jesus bore in order to offer us this grace. He gave us his life. The grace itself is free, and so the church proclaims this grace, and the grace that the church offers is free. But for the church to be able to function so that it can offer this grace and proclaim this grace, that of course requires resources, all sorts of resources, including money. And And so this video is going to be telling you what the church does for you and for the community, and how we as a church are fulfilling this calling to survive and help others survive and be around after these current difficult times that we're going through. Ever since I started as the minister of Trinity Methodist Church, I have almost every week run to the top of Northcliffe, to the Eco Park, and have looked out at the view. And as I look out at the view, I'm very conscious of the area that my congregation live in and the area that we are called to serve. It's always a very poignant moment, filled with a sense of responsibility and also of inspiration, as God keeps guiding one as to what to do with all these people. I'd like to unpack how we spend the money of the church for you and for the community by talking about the 5 eternal priorities of Trinity Methodist Church. Those 5 eternal priorities are worship, evangelism, discipleship, ministry, and community. And let me just briefly unpack very quickly what each of these mean for the life of the church and how you and the community benefit from them. Worship obviously relates to having this as a place of worship on the corner of 5th and 5th, our sanctuary, and all the equipment and staff that it goes into offering worship services here. Evangelism obviously happens within services as we offer God's grace, but it is also a whole lot of activities in the life of the church, like a pop-up play place that we've just had, and also our outreach to Orange Farm and Mozambique, and our holiday club that we do here, and other evangelistic initiatives that we get ourselves involved with. When one talks about ministry, this is all of the ways in which we care for our congregation, the people in need, the people in crises, the people in difficulties, illness and disease and loss. This is where we have a pastoral care pastor and a pastoral care ministry, a whole lot of volunteers who are trained by the pastor. We have a children's and family pastor caring for obviously children and family ministries, also a lot of training and a lot of volunteers involved there, empowered by the pastor. We have a youth and young adults pastor, which empowers a whole lot of volunteers and does a whole lot of ministry in that space. We care for our seniors. We do weddings and funerals and interventions for loss and interventions for marriages in crisis. We also reach out into the community by caring for homeless and unemployed with a chapel ministry, and also in Soweto, child-headed households where they need care. And then discipleship, which is about transformation of heart and mind, making disciples. This is where we run courses and home groups, and we have a library stocked with fiction and non-fiction resources, and a whole lot of other things that we do, a prayer and spirituality portfolio and a passionate spirituality drive this year. And then lastly, our community life, the community, the last of the 5 eternal priorities. This is where we are trying to build a membership that is diverse, where we have fellowship events, where we are showing a community of unity to the wider society, which is the way in which we are a beacon of hope for them. Everything I've described is obviously very visible to you and to the community, but for it to have that prominence and to actually happen, there needs to be a whole lot of support behind the scenes, which is a lot less visible. A bit like the iceberg, where there's actually more under the surface than on top of the surface. So all of these ministries, all of these 5 eternal priorities and the work they involve needs to be supported by personnel, committees and systems. Some of those will be volunteer and some of those will be paid for. And so here one's looking at the whole realm of the church's staff and operations and property and finances and IT and security security and legal risk and compliance. Everything I've described obviously needs a lot of generous support from you as the congregation. I want to introduce the concept now of the grace of giving. Grace is also really God's operational power, and it is by God's grace that we come to faith. It is by God's grace that we are transformed. And it's also by God's grace that we are able to give. It's not so much a willpower matter that enables us to give. And so I'm going to encourage you to pray that you and I would be able to have the grace to be able to give financially and support the life of the church. So remember, we have a sense of call on us as a congregation to survive this current hard times, to help other people survive, to be around after these hard times, to be a beacon of hope through these hard times. Remember also that God's grace is free, we don't buy it, but to be able to offer that grace, to be able to have a church functioning so that it can offer that grace, that costs money. And so we need to be givers and we need to be generous. And I'm sure you've been able to see how thoroughly the church serves you and the community. So I want to end with a beautiful quote from John Wesley, and with delight I share this with you. He said, "Do all the good you can, by all the means you can, in all the ways you can, in all the places you can, at all the times you can, with all the people you can, for as long as ever you can." God bless you, and I trust that this has been inspirational for you to see what this church does for you and